Alright, what's up guys? So, there's always been a question that's always been ramming around my head for a while. I'm sure we all know that 1 is equal to 1. Why? Because I can have one apple and I can have another apple here and I could see them. Literally this is one apple, that's literally one apple, and that they're equal, 1 is 1. Same goes for 2 and 2 and so on and so forth. But there's always been a question in my head was, how can I figure or prove, in this case, that 0 is equal to 0? Because, well, I can't physically show you 0. There's nothing. So nothing could be everything, but it could also be nothing. So I figured out a mathematical equation to help us with this. And it's a very simple equation. It's actually, it goes like this. 3x over 4 plus 2y over 16, and that will be equal to 48. That's our equation. We're going to solve this, and I'll show you guys how we're going to solve this in just a moment. So how we're going to solve this whole jungle here? Well, let's make this a little simpler. Let's put a 1 underneath that, so everything here is going to be a fraction. We're going to multiply this denominator by this numerator, and this denominator by this numerator, and at the end we'll just multiply all the denominators by this numerator. Alright, so it'll be like so, which will then give us 48x over, well, we also know that our common denominator is 64, so then that'll be plus 8y. That's also over 64, is it equal to 3072 over 64. But now this is actually looking a lot easier. It looks like there's more numbers, but it's actually a lot easier when this is, because all now that I have to do is I have to just multiply this whole thing by 64, right? Like that. And if I distribute it everywhere here, we'll actually be just left with the top half, because they're all being divided by 64, so I multiplied all by 64, I'll be back with the original thing. So I can now rewrite this as 48x plus 8y is equal to 3072. Okay, so we got to this part. Now that this is actually more simple than what we started off with, but we can't just solve for x and y, because we don't have a second equation. So I'm going to create a second equation here. So that way we'll have 2, and then I'll show you what we do after that. So the easiest second equation we can do is we just multiply everything by 2, because that's essentially the same equation, but at least it's giving us more information to work with. So my new equation, we'll call this equation number 1, and we'll call this equation number 2. This is how we do it. Cool stuff. So this will turn into 96x plus 16y is equal to 6,144. So now that we have 2 equations here, now this is going to look a lot easier because I have something to work with. I have 2 equations. Even though I have 2 variables, at least I have 2 equations, and now I could solve for x, and I can plug it in into y. So let's do that. I'll show you right here. The easiest thing that we can do, let's get rid of this, I don't really need this anymore. The easiest thing that we'll do is we'll take the equation that looks easier from the both of these. This is lower numbers, so I'm going to use this one. It actually looks a lot easier for me. So what I'll do is I'll take 48x plus 16y, which is equal to 3072. I will subtract 16x. Whoop, I messed up there. I meant to say we will take 8y. That's going to be 8y. All right, that's not 16. That's 8y. I got a little mixed up there looking at that. We'll take 8y and we'll subtract it from one side, and then we'll also subtract 8y from the other side. So now our new equation is going to be 48x is equal to 3072 minus 8y. Perfect. Now it's looking a lot easier. What I'll do is isolate the x. I'll divide this side by 48, and I'll also divide this side by 48. So that will be canceling that. That will give me x, and this will give me x is equal to 3072 minus 8y over 48. Wow, I'm loving this. This is beautiful right here. Now, even though it looks crazy, I just solved what x is. So I don't need to know what x is anymore because I already know what x is equal to 3072 minus 8y over 48. Amazing. So now we're going to go to the second equation. We're going to plug that x as y. So instead of 96x, I will write that as 96 open parentheses, because we're going to be multiplying it by all of this, which is an x. So 2 minus 8y over 48, close parentheses, very, very important. We don't want to mess anything up in this equation. Plus 16, I'll get the 16 correct on this one. 16y is equal to 6,144. Oop, forgot the 8. Okay, now what we have to do is we're back like how we were in the beginning when we had fractions. So I'm going to actually give all these a 1 to make it a little easier for our head. But essentially what we're doing is we're multiplying everything by 48. These two are actually together because it's the same number. So because this is basically saying 96x. So this is all one fraction. So I'm going to multiply this by 48, and we're going to multiply all this by 48. Okay, so this is multiplied by 48. If this is divided by 48, it's all equaling this. So if we multiply by 48, we get 96, open parentheses, 3072 minus 8y plus, plus we're going to multiply this part now by 4. Oh, not sure what happened there. Phone died. So where were we? We had 96, open parentheses, 3072 minus 8 y, close parentheses, very, very important, plus, now again, we're going to do, remember, we have to multiply all this and this also by 48. So that is going to give us 384y, keeping the positive sign, which is going to then be equal. Will then be equal to, let's do this real quick, 6,144 times 48, which will then give us 294,912. I'm not sure if I got that right. If you guys want to make sure with the calculator, if I got this a little wrong, please let me know in the comments. But I think I got that. Yeah. Okay. So now the next step, wow, this is actually looking beautiful because now we're just working with a single variable. Unlike in the beginning, which this looks smaller. Remember in math, we should never judge a math question by its size. Good tip for life. It's because we have one variable, two variables, which is making it practically impossible. This is actually looking a lot easier because we have only single variable. We have y. And we don't need to solve for x anymore because we already know that x is equal to this in y form. So all we have to do is solve for y. So our next step is now to distribute the 96 into this, because that's what this is, 96 times this whole jungle. So we're going to do that right now, and you'll be surprised actually what 96 times 2,072 equal, because we had just met it beforehand. It actually equals 294,000, I'm sorry, 912. So I definitely got this right because, well, this one also equals it, and we're having to have this equalness because it's a equal side, so obviously these numbers are going to match. Then we're going to get 96 times negative 8y, remember that, so now it's a positive times a negative, we're going to make it into a negative, which will then give us 296, 768y, right, but this is also a negative, right, which then we're going to bring off down, we're going to drop the rest, which will then be plus 384. Y is equal to 294,000 912. Okay, this is looking so good right now. I'm loving this. We're going to now add the two families here. We have the y and the y. We're going to add these two together, which will give us actually negative 384y. Perfect. And now we have 294,912 and 245,912 on both sides. So actually, I don't want those both sides. So I'm going to subtract it from both sides, which will then obviously give us the equal to 0. I'm sure you guys are seeing where I'm going with this, right? So right now I want to make sure that the y will be by itself. I will divide it by 384, and I'll also then divide the 0 by negative 384. This will then cancel that. That will give me y, and this will give me y is equal to 0. Since we know that y is equal to 0, thus we could go back to the beginning where we can see in beautiful steps how 0 actually is indeed equal to 0. Thank you guys so much.